Have you ever seen somebody try to convince somebody to make a sale and then compare that to somebody who helped somebody solve a problem and made a sale with ease? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between trying to convince or persuade somebody to buy versus helping solve problems and closing more sales as a result. When it comes to making sales, a lot of salespeople use persuasion and sales tactic to close more deals. Well, when you help people solve their problems and prescribe your solution, whether it's a product or a service, to close the deal, it's an easier transaction. People enjoy the experience more, you will enjoy the experience more, and you're most likely going to close more sales as a result. So let's compare the standard model that most salespeople use. Let's just call it convincing for simplicity versus helping solve problems as a comparison. Let's kind of talk about the two different scenarios, and I'll give you some examples at the end on scripts and things you can say to help people solve problems and prescribe your product and your service as the solution and close more sales that way versus the standard traditional sales model. So most salespeople try to persuade people to buy, where if you're helping solve problems, the first step is to find out what prospects need and prescribe a solution. And that solution can be the product or the service that you're offering. So for an example, if you're a real estate agent, you can ask more questions that will lead them down the path of a sale to using you as their real estate agent. So let's talk about this. When you're convincing somebody or you're trying to pressure them into a sale, for example, it's like playing tug of war. You go back and forth trying to convert the prospect you're working with into a sale. Maybe you're meeting with a home seller that needs to sell their home, and you're at the listing presentation trying to convince them that you're the best, you're number one, and they should list with you. Well, that's more of a persuasion, pushy sales tactic that most people don't enjoy, yourself included. It feels uncomfortable, nobody's enjoying the experience, they're resistant, their red flags are going up like crazy, and it's really hard to get past that, get them to reestablish trust with you and to close the deal. Where if you're asking them questions in more of a consultative way by restating the problem that they're having or the challenges that they're facing and then prescribing yourself as the solution. So let me give you some actual examples. If you're in a convincing role or a pushy salesperson role, a lot of people will use tactics like, hey, I'm the best. I'm number one. I sell more homes than anyone else in the area. You should list with me because I'm number one and I'm going to sell your home fast, right? And it sounds a little boisterous. If the person doesn't believe you, it's harder to close sales with that method. Now let's compare that to helping solve problems and prescribing yourself as the solution. So for an example, you can ask questions like, when are you selling your home? When are you moving? Or why are you moving? What price do you hope to sell for? You know, it's a less aggressive question. And then how did you come up with that price? And then you dig for their challenges. What are the things that are the biggest concerns to them? And then you prescribe a solution by offering, explain exactly how you're going to overcome their big concerns. So for an example, if their big concern is they want to sell their home for $1 million and their home's only worth $900, but a few agents already met them and said, oh, I can sell your home for 1.2. Now you got to figure out how to overcome that objection. And you can actually help and dissect and talk to them about it and solve a problem versus pushing yourself as, listen, I'm the best and I'm the top, and if you list for $900,000 with me, I'm going to sell your home fast. Well, it's going to be hard to believe you when other agents are coming in and promising something else. So first, asking questions and leading to a decision together is so much easier than coming in and trying to convince them. Let me tell you a quick story to illustrate this point. When I was a new agent, a lot of other realtors were cutting their commissions trying to get the business. And I would sit down with the seller at the listing table and I'd say, listen, let's just talk about the different scenarios and the different commissions that you can pay. And I'd say, listen, put yourself in the shoes of a real estate agent. If you were a real estate agent out showing homes, which homes would you most likely show? And then try to convince a buyer to buy. I said, regardless if you perceive it as ethical or unethical, it's human nature. Just think of yourself as an agent trying to feed your family and you're showing buyers you've been working with for a year. There's a home on the market where you're going to get paid a 2% commission. And there's a home next door with a pool that is a 3% commission. I said, which one are you going to show? And which one are you going to push on the buyer if they're willing to listen? I said, and I would shut up and I'd let them answer their question. Now that was just one method. I'm sure I could come up with a better one today, but that's one of the questions that I would ask, and I'd let them answer it. And then from there, we would then, I would let them make the decision, right? Because they answered the question, and based on how they answered the question, we'd lead them down a path to a solution. So that's just one really simple example. It's not the best, but it worked when I was a new agent. And I, since then, learned a lot of different questions and scenarios, and I would tell stories, and I'd give examples, and I'd bring in client stories or scenarios like, hey, listen, I sold a home in a flood zone before, and when I did, here's exactly what I did, and how I did it, and how I positioned the home so it sold for more money. And I would just break it down. And then it wasn't like a pushy sales conversation. It was more of a, hey, we're both here with the same goal. We want to sell your home for the most money possible in the least amount of time that makes sense for them, the seller. And it was more of a discovery consultative selling approach, and it made my job so much easier, so much more pleasant, and so much more enjoyable. And one of the things that I learned early on was providing information and value and helping versus selling just made a better experience, made it more fun, and it was easier to get business. And over time, I created a bunch of different brochures and marketing material, and eventually led to a book. And if you haven't used a book or helpful information, I highly recommend you do that. You can obviously create it yourself, or you can go to Authorify.com to check out how you can create a book with our company and use it to get more business, position yourself as an authority, establish trust, and use it to close more sales. And if you like this video, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button. And if you have questions or consultative selling methods or conversational pieces that you've used, or even case studies or stories, I'd love to hear what has worked for you in relation to this topic. Please do me a huge favor and post them in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation there. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.